Yeah.
I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won.
Yeah.
I hope my team they won.
Yeah. Man.
I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won.
Yeah.
I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. As you see, getting in here and get excited about the show today. Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Mike Washington is back out on assignment. We did get him in Atlanta. I don't know if he still is a news flash and trying to recover like a lot of folks that made it down there this weekend. But with that being said, we will check on it. Welcome to episode 757 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU diaspora, all things HBCU sports for institutions large and small, from the NEIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs in the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-host, Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. We also have AD Drew in here. We're filming from our home studios and sending a signal live, KCOH 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, multi-Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University from Houston, Texas. With that being said, let's bring everybody on board so we can get into some HBCU news of the day. As we are doing that, Mike snuck in here, not on assignment. Good job, Mike. You made it work.
The door hit him in the butt as we was closing, getting ready for the lecture, Dr. Cavil.
Yeah, so we were closing down the studios. He snuck right in there. Oh, let me get it. With that being said, Charles, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty good, Doc. Just trying to get some work knocked out and get back. So we are in the midst of working on that. So.
I get it. I get it. Bless your heart.
Yeah.
That ain't get that done. I appreciate you putting in the work. I do have a personal question I need to ask you. And not to go back, because you won a championship but this is just for my personal edification, if you would, a little bit. I just need to know, after that first one in 2021, how many nights did it take you before you finally were able to get a good night rest? I'm working on Saturday, Sunday night, Monday night. So I'm hoping maybe tonight will be the first one, because it hasn't worked yet.
Yeah. That first one, that hangover, is there with you for a while. So eventually you'll sleep, get into a good sleep pattern, but it takes a while. It takes a little second.
Right.
Yeah, that first one, when I got
hopefully tonight by the end of the show, we talk it out a little more. Maybe that'll work. But at this point, nothing has quite worked. This is day 3 of the hangover, and I don't think this is because of drinking.
Right.
Per se. I think there's something else. With that being said, I'm gonna let Mike stew on it a little bit. Drew, how are you doing today?
Doing fine. Dr. Cavil, you're in a place that luckily as a rattler, I have not had to be in. We only been there one time. But we handled our business the one time that we was there. So I have not had that feeling yet, Dr. Cavil, and hope to never have that feeling, Charles, Mike, everything else. I do want to take a point of personal privilege and thank the 3 of you guys for your support and everything that you did this weekend at the Celebration Bowl, and my assistants, especially Charles, who went above and beyond and really did an outstanding job moderating the press conferences. You know,
Thank you.
those clips that a lot of you guys saw put out by the media. Charles was the one who was directing traffic in the room, making sure that those people actually got called on. So kudos to you, Charles Bishop. And my last thing is I pass it over to Mike. Last Wednesday was Whack-'em Wednesday. Today looks like it's going to be Termination Tuesday. At least in Atlanta, you know, we can say that in Atlanta right now. So,
yeah, it's kind of wild the one that happened today. Anybody looking for a good coach? I know one that is out there that just hit the market, and it's not because he's planning to go somewhere else. Somebody decided to make an early exit, so surprised about that. Albany State, and you know, it's my understanding you're in the football business. Howard University, we just learned that they're in the football business, so. Choices to be made. So great point there. I want to first say thank you for the acknowledgement. And ED, I thought you did a marvelous job in terms of handling a lot of things that were going on. It's amazing to see that takes place. Charles, first time in the captain chair in terms of directing traffic. How challenging was it for you not to ask the question?
Very challenging.
How many good questions did you come up with and you're like, man, they should ask that one? Or you heard somebody be like, yeah, that's the one I was going to ask.
I had some sitting up my sleeve too. So, but no, it was a great job by the media. You know, it's just you know, you have things that you think about when you're, you know, up there behind the podium. But overall, you know, I think everybody, you know, exhausted their cannon, if you will, with regards to getting questions in. So
there was one press conference. I don't remember which one it was, Charles. When you opened it up, no one opened it up with a question initially, and Charles led it off and got everybody's juices going. Also, so I'm glad you had at least one of them in your back pocket.
Oh yeah, that was band of the year, absolutely. I
couldn't remember which press conference. We did so many press conferences. I couldn't remember which one it was.
I know, right?
Mike, how are you doing? You just snuck in here and got a little bite to eat, and you not sharing?
Man, these are gummy bears. I'm trying to keep my strength with these gummy bears.
What kind of gummies, Mike?
No, the legal gummy bears.
Okay.
Yeah, I know some friends who had some, but no, these are legal. So, Charles, I am not taking your advice. I am still in 7 days of mourning, day 2 of 7 days of mourning. I cannot get over this. It is hard for me as a Panther fan to get through this, over this, around this. I keep going back to several plays. So I know you've been there, you've seen it, but it is hard for me. This one hurt true PV fans. This one hurt. So it is hard for me to get through this last travel week of work, not thinking at some point of the day about plays, 4th and 16, that last play, the misfit. It's hard for me to get around it. I can't. I need help, and I got my help. But it's not helping. So, you know, I appreciate the advice, Charles, but it's not working for me. So I have not slept good for 2 days. It had nothing to do with the consumption that I had. It just had to do with that game and the ebbs and flows of it. Having said that, I said it once, AD, phenomenal job. I didn't see AD sit down one time. And the brother I always mess with AD, but it's out of love. He does a phenomenal job. And then I looked up there and I saw CB up there. I was like, look at my little baby. So I look at him. Charles was like, next question. I said, Mike, next question. I was like, you tell him, Charles. I was like, you tell him. So I don't want to take away from y'all's thunder, man. Y'all did a phenomenal job. Great job. Hats off to you, but I'm still in mourning. I'm sorry. I'm sure we'll talk about it. But other than that, trying to get through this last week of travel and up here in 17-degree weather, Philly, where it feels like 9 degrees. Yeah. So other than that, Doc, I didn't mean to be the down spot or the jury or to bring the energy down, but that's how I'm feeling. So
I thought you brought it up. Actually, told the truth. with that being said, let's take our first break. Let's come on the other side, and then when we come back, we'll talk a little bit of news of the day. Sneakershop.com said what? Mike, what stage of grief are you in currently? Yeah. I'm not sure if he even knows yet. Enhance alcohol to rescue. I see you laughing loud. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, you remember my word, enhanced ethanol. Yes, indeed.
Erica from Howard said, look out for the blockbuster hire in football. Uh-oh. Somebody's going to get a big name. It'll be interesting to see what that looks like. Everybody's in the football business, yes, as the attention goes to the Celebration Bowl. I'll say this before we get in a break. As those numbers start to climb, I think there's going to be updates in terms of extension on the Celebration Bowl at some period here. And I think part of that also talks about increased numbers, which is expected based on how the game has been played. It's something about getting two champions on the field at the same time, regardless of levels, demarcations, institution, nomenclature. Oftentimes it works out for great matchups, and that's what we've had for the Celebration Bowl. So that's going to be fascinating. But what that does on the other side, it ramps up the expectation of so many institutions. So we see that. One of the things I'm going to look at near the end of the show is to talk about, who are the teams with the winning records. We talked about how dominating the East has been. West, obviously, it's first time that the West has got over the hump in terms of winning things since expansion. So it'll be fascinating to see, not really since expansion, since it went to home field with the best record coming into. That's first time West has got back into it. First time in terms of since expansion. We'll look at how the conference has level set with winning records, what they've done in the championship game, and what they've done in the Celebration Bowl. So we'll get a chance to look at that. I think people will see some interesting numbers, what that looks like, and we'll tell you the number of teams that have winning records in that. But in addition, when you start looking at the other thing that also takes place is people's expectation of what they want to see their football team get done. So that's going to create these revolving doors. So when I looked at those lists, one of the things I saw that all those folks on their list have had multiple coaches at least. Fascinating. So even with the winning, which means maybe some people leave on successful notes, or shortly after they've had success, maybe they don't have it long. So to me, that's going to be interesting to see what that looks like. This continues to do. And obviously, it'd be intriguing to look at what that looks like for the MEAC. I just did the SWAC today, so we'll have some maybe on Thursday a chance to look on the other side of that. But let's take our first break and come back on the other side and talk about some HBCU news, some of the things that you all kind of teased out. We'll be right back after this first break.
Give me a second, Mark. I'm froze for a second, y'all, so wait a minute.
No problem. We'll keep rolling since that is the case. As you are seeking to get unstuck, I did want to talk a little bit about
playing. So, wait a minute. Go ahead. Keep going.
I am also talking about a little bit in regards to what that means in terms of the financial side of this. The financial side of the SWAC is extremely healthy. We've heard that in terms of the reports there. So it's going to be fascinating to see what that looks like and how that causes coaches and ADs and even presidents and chancellors to react. So with that, let's take our first break and come back on the other side and talk about some news.
This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cavil of Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app, as we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want a law, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, and A.D. Drew. With that being said, Charles, what's on your mind in terms of HBCU news?
Yeah, well, I think we touched on it just a little bit there, but huge news coming out of Atlanta today is Clark Atlanta football coach Teddy Keaton, one of the best stories in HBCU football last season. And a year later, his time at Clark Atlanta has come to an end as Clark announced it has parted ways with Coach Keaton today after 2 seasons leading the Panthers. So that decision was made on today. So huge news coming out of Clark with regards to Teddy Keaton.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Again, I'll reiterate that as you kind of tested out. Big news. Some coaching opportunities are out there. He's a good one. He won at Allen with a program that was being built. We started Clark Atlanta, had never won. Won last year, dipped it down a little bit this year, but it showed his threads. Somebody needs to give him a call and talk to him about their head coaching position. With that being said, Mike, what's on your mind in terms of news of the day?
So, we talked about coaching changes and so there's one I'm sure JD can probably elaborate more on. So I will touch on the Hall of Fame, the SWAC 2025 Hall of Fame inducted from SWAC.org, of course. They inducted their 2025 SWAC Hall of Fame class on Friday, December 12th. That was this past Friday. The enshrinement ceremony was held at the Omni Hotel. I'm sure many of you know it's part of the Celebration Bowl activities. The newest members of the SWAC Hall of Fame were chosen from a list of nominees who were submitted by their respective institutions. So the Hall of Fame nominee honorees include Gremlin State's Albert Dennis III, Jackson State Sean Gregory, Mississippi Valley State's Ashley Robinson, Southern's Dale Davenport, and SWAC's Milton Taylor, and then of course Byron Johnson, who is in and of itself legend. Don't know if we covered that, but that official announcement came out. So wanted to reiterate that if we've mentioned it before, but tremendous congratulations to these individuals.
We mentioned it right after it was announced, but obviously they had that Friday night getting into the Celebration Bowl. So I think it's good to reiterate those folks that were honored that night. A shout out to all of the SWAC Hall of Famers that were admitted this year for 2025. But a special shout out to Ashley Robinson, because I just saw the big old grin on his face. That was hilarious. He was an unhappy individual. A lot of people obviously were happy, but it was just something about the type of smile he had on his face. Well deserved.
Of that list, Ashley is probably the best dressed. But he's probably the best dressed.
He's in the best dress Hall of Fame.
Yes, indeed. I gotta
That
give
is
it
for
to it.
sure. That is for sure. Shout out to Ashley, Vice President and Director of Athletics at Jackson State University. Might be having to head back to Atlanta this weekend for basketball, HBC Basketball Classic. Maybe we get a chance to talk about that as well. With that being said, AD Drew, what's on your mind?
Since football season is over with, y'all, I know some of you guys are in mourning. Some of you guys have been done with football season over a month ago. So let's talk some hoops. Let's talk Chris Paul. As in, we're not talking about him getting dismissed 2 o'clock in the morning. We talking about the Chris Paul HBCU Classic, which will be taking place right here in Atlanta, Georgia, Thursday and Friday at the Gateway Center. The 2-day showcase held in partnership with the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame will feature 8 HBCU programs competing on a national stage. Thursday lineup is Clark Atlanta versus Lincoln, PA at 10 a.m., followed by Fayetteville State versus Morehouse at 12:30. The nightcap brings Jackson State and Hampton. We're going to see you there, Charles. I'm going to answer that right now. And then the state faces Norfolk to close the day out. On Friday, the competition continues. Lincoln, PA takes on the Maroon Tigers of Morehouse. Go House. Clark Atlanta takes on Fayetteville State. Hampton takes on Grambling. And the nightcap, the coup de grace, is Jackson State and Norfolk State on Friday.
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
We got a little time before we get into some other news that y'all might want to share. I want to get everybody's early thoughts in terms of that particular matchup, Norfolk and Jackson State. That has me pretty excited. Obviously, Morehouse being right there in Atlanta should be good in terms of their attendance, but that Jackson State, Norfolk State game, Charles, what are your early thoughts in terms of what that matchup may look at like this?
Yeah, you take a look at two teams, especially a guy like Deshaun Ruffin with Jackson State, Norfolk, perennial power within the MEAC, but it should be a really fun game to kind of sit up and take in. I know once we're in this early part of the season, it's kind of tough to get a gauge, but hopefully this weekend you kind of get a gauge on how these teams are rounded into shape, especially as we're looking at conference openers right around the corner.
It's also a good gauge to get you lathered up for some HBCU basketball as you pretty much have closed football. Now it's an opportunity, and this is a good matchup, not necessarily some of those money games. So, Mike, what are your thoughts in terms of this early matchup between Jackson State and Norfolk State?
So what I'm interested in is normally at the beginning of the season, and this is kind of part concern of mine, but as you see those out of conference money games, but very rarely do you really get an early indication of or cross divisional play to see what the strengths are. So to see, I'm kind of happy, number one, to see that it's early in the schedule. But I'd be interested to see, how Jackson State will perform, because early indications are, Jackson State's. You can't use early indications, but I'd like to see how that cross divisional, east, west, or cross, conference play will work out. Who's prepared or whatever, because guarantee you at the end we'll be talking about how did they fare at the very beginning of the season when these two teams played each other. Head to head's important, so that I guess that's what I'm excited. I don't know if I have any specifics or details to play, but I'd be interested to see how competitive they are being cross-divisional, cross-conference games like this.
Yeah, I'm interested also in that Grambling Hampton matchup. Should be interesting there. Obviously, Grambling with the FAMU coach heading over there, they've gotten off with a couple of Division I wins, so fascinating there. But AD, I wanted to ask you a little bit about this CIAA SIAC matchups that are there, Fayetteville State versus Morehouse that you mentioned. And then you also have obviously that Clark Atlanta in terms of Fayetteville State. So I mean, once the first matchup that Saturday or that Thursday, and you have Clark Atlanta and Lincoln, and then they switch up to play each other. What are your thoughts in terms of the CIAA versus the SIAC on the basketball court?
Oh, first of all, I'll start with the Morehouse perspective. Morehouse started somehow by a quirk of the schedule. Morehouse had 7 of its first 8 regular season games on the road. Now, at the Division I level, you typically see stuff like that, but at the Division II level, you don't see that very often, where you start the season out on the road as much as you do. So we played at home today. So for us to be at a neutral site, but actually be in the Atlanta metro area, it's refreshing for our players and it's refreshing for our fans that we not at home, but we are at home. As obviously starting off with that many games on the road, it's favorable on the backside, as 14 of the next 18 games are within the Atlanta metro area for the Maroon Tigers. But also the fact that we've expanded to 24 conference games. So for us to be able to take it, and we are already 6 games into our conference schedule. So for us to be able to take a break from conference play, it's important to get these W's. But the fact that we get to take a break from conference play at this point in time in the season is a refreshing. It's refreshing for the guys. And then, of course, that's the conference pride. Anytime you got CIAA and SIAC facing each other, there's always that conference pride portion of it. So we did them to them in football. We need. They say they play basketball over there in the CIAA. We're trying to show them something down here in the SIAC.
One to keep your eyes on is over there in Alabama A&M on the hill. They're at 6-4 with 4 Division I wins. We have other teams that have a couple of them, including Tennessee State, that just got a big win themselves in terms of UNLV. Yeah. That game was at home. I got to see that.
Only SWAC team with a winning record over 500 to this point is Alabama A&M.
Interesting.
Correct. So fascinating to see how they get on it. So we get a chance to get some light competition. Southern, keep your eyes on them. They have a regional win against the Division I program, and you have quite a few teams that have gotten some Division I wins. So it'll be interesting to see what that looks like. Obviously, on the MEAC side, you got Norfolk State that continues to do their thing in terms of what that looks like. Going up there, Howard has been solid there at 8-5 in terms of a winning record on that side, with a couple of Division I wins on their tally. So fascinating to see as it's quick in time to get into it. With that being said, let's take our second break. We'll come back on the other side. And I want to get into some updates and back into football to kind of close that chapter in a lot of ways and see what your thoughts on that. And like I said, the last segment, we'll get into some rankings in terms of what teams have done since expansion. But this next segment, let's get in here and get into some of these way too early 2025 football top 7s. Get your thoughts on that on the other side.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
Planning an event? From weddings to corporate functions, CMJ Events LLC brings over 15 years of experience to make your vision a reality. Based in Metro Atlanta and serving statewide, even internationally, we provide versatile event planning and authentic catering cuisines tailored to your needs. Whether it's pre-game meals for student athletes, fundraisers, weddings, corporate functions, CMJ Events LLC is your one-stop solution for exceptional service and unforgettable food. Our diverse culinary heritage means we cater to all cultural tastes, dietary needs, and food restrictions, making every meal uniquely yours. Let's make your next event unforgettable. Visit us on all social media at CMJ Events LLC or email us at cmjeventsllc@gmail.com. Also give us a call at 404-664-3882 so that we can start planning now.
College football. Compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they want a lot, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
So let's bring it up so we can get into this report, giving you final updates. Starting up, obviously, we look forward into February as we'll use basketball to honor the Ben L. Cavil Senior Big Ben Award winner. We will announce the finalists after an incredible season. This award honors the individual player out of Texas that either played on the HBCU football team in the state of Texas or is from Texas and went to play for HBCU outside of the state. It is honoring Ben L. Cavil, who and the players that exhibited enduring characteristics that define Ben L. Cavil Sr.: determination, diligence, integrity, performance, familial, teamwork, fraternal, and community engagement. Ben was an HBCU football All-American playing at Wiley College at the time, now Wiley University, in the mid-20s. That's the 1920s, Charles. Ben L. Cavil Senior Big Ben Award, THG agency program established to recognize and reconstruct the historical resistance of HBCUs by analyzing the cultural climate and HBCU athletic programs by highlighting the sports career of Ben L. Cavil Sr. When we further look at that, for those that are not aware, during the first decade of the SWAC, that is in the 1920s as it was created, with all that history, those private institutions with the lone public institution out of the state of Texas. He played from 1925 to 1929. Big Ben distinguished himself collegiately, academically, and fraternally as a member of Wiley College team as a SWAC All-American, champion, and Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity pledgee at that time. You could say that 1925, initiated in 1926. Yeah, they did that for a little bit of time there, Charles and Mike, in terms of how long you had to go through the gauntlet, I guess, while compiling championship stories, records, and national honors as an HBCU gridiron legend, as a fullback and a member, as they coined in the newspapers, Pittsburgh Courier and black newspapers, if you would. I called it Negro newspapers at the time in the state of Texas as well, Wildcat 11. He excelled outside the Eurocentric framing of the American football collegiate context of that era. Looking to see if I can push him and get him potentially in that SWAC Hall of Fame that we just talked about a little bit. We'll see if we can do a little bit of work there. If you've been asleep under a rock, we talked about on Sunday as we honored South Carolina State, that South Carolina State defeated Prairie View in that matchup. South Carolina won in 5 overtimes, 40-38. Number one, 10-3, 5-0, as South Carolina State improved and closed out the season, while Prairie View, the number 2 ranked team, fell to 10-4 and 7-1 on the season. Just to conclude that score, not doing any help to Mike as he's still trying to get over that probably rubbing a little salt in the wound. But we do what we have to do. Talking about that final ranking, we acknowledge South Carolina State Dogs as Dr. Cavill's HBCU Major Division champion. One thing that I also interested from you all, if you think about this is Chennisberry's 3rd national championship. A lot of people were focused in terms of South Carolina State, but remember, we also acknowledge and name a mid-major champion, right? And so he won that mid-major championship in 22, 23 with the Benedict Tigers, and now 2 years later, he's a champion after playing for it last year. So 3 national championships in 4 years. You know, you talking about starting to stack the chips in terms of what you've done in HBCU early on. He's making the case. You know, we talked about TC Taylor right there in terms of making a huge statement where he was running and still on that trajectory. Obviously, We also talked about Willie Simmons, but now he's moved on. Trey Oliver, another one that's still in the mix right there in terms of what that looks like. You have to go back to Rod Broadway, Mike, 80.
Yeah.
He won back-to-back national championships as the CIAA head coach of North Carolina Central in 2005, 2006, and then turned around 2 years later and won it at Grambling State in 2008. That was before the Celebration Bowl, but he did, before he closed his career, he did get a chance to move on to North Carolina A&T and win it in the MEAC 2015. So he's done it both in the SWAC and the MEAC and the CIAA when the Eagles, they moved up and then closed it out in 2017 in terms of what he was able to do after losing to Rod Foss. But he's up there in terms of what that looks like. But there are not a lot of individuals that have been able to do it on both sides. Obviously, you have Frazier that won it in SWAC 2009, and now he might have a chance to look at doing it going back on the major, going the other side of it. You have, if you look at it in terms of Bartlow, who's now at Tennessee State, he has to get a lot done because they're not connected to the Celebration Bowl, so he can't get that part of it. But he can still win conference championships and national championships if it plays out that way. But there's not a lot of folks on this list since we've been keeping this since 2002, Charles. A couple of ones further back that have different recognitions. Obviously you got to look at Pete Richardson that did win in 2003. And he has some precursors to the Celebration in terms of Heritage Bowl, in terms of that, look at it. But what are your thoughts when I kind of put that on the table? I don't want to leave out Joe Taylor, who's had some history before he was recognized on our poll in the major division with Hampton. He did some things Virginia Union. But that's fascinating when you start looking at in terms of what that looks like. Charles?
I'll tell you what's fascinating to me, Doc, is just the breadth of great coaching that we're watching right now. I mean, you got Chinnisberry, you got T.C. Taylor, you got Tremaine Jackson, you got Trey Oliver. You mentioned Trey Oliver. Deshaun Jackson, the way he flipped Delaware State around. There's opening at Howard now, but you talk about Howard being in the Celebration Bowl, but I mean, yesterday's price is not today's price. You saw what Marshall Faulk was able to do.
You still got, to your point, you got Coach Wilson, Damon Wilson, they did the Bowie State.
Exactly, Damon Wilson, Bowie State, yeah.
Now you look like you might be adding Quinn Gray, who just closed out his first one.
Yeah.
And now he might be stepping up. Looks like he's going to be landing. I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but every indication is that he's going to Tallahassee, back home in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So, Mike, what are your thoughts when you hear that breakdown in terms of specifically what Chinnisberry was able to do over the last 4 years?
So I look at the coaching, and I look at it from a different angle. There's an interesting dichotomy. You got those coaches who are coaching at the Division II ranks who have stepped up and been very successful. Then you've got maybe one or two NFL ranked coaches that are stepping in. One is doing, really well in their first year. All have led to very good coaching. So to Charles's point, the competitive coaching, but I'm looking at kind of their pathway to get there and where they came from, their ranks. If you look at, and what do I mean that, for instance, I mean, if you look at, Rod, Rod, he finished 57-20 or something with the Aggies, 125-45 overall. He spent time with Grambling as well, but he had an interesting pedigree. And then, you look at his pathway to get there, and then you look at Tremaine Jackson, then you look at Chinnisberry, you look at their pathway to get there, and you wonder, with all this good coaching, is there a script for success, or is it just based on the individual? It's all good coaching, but that's just an arbitrary question. Is there a designated path for success, or is it based on the individual? Because all of the coaches you read off, Doc, were phenomenal. And there's a lot of them, but they all had slightly tweaked different paths. And that led them to, the SWAC or the MEAC at some point. So I'm interested in their path and how they got there. And is there, in this today and age, is there a designated path to get there?
I think it's interesting, and you can take a little deeper look. I do want to shout out Connell Maynard with the 3 straight CIAA championships he had at Winston-Salem State, and then getting the championship in 2020. That was the COVID year with Alabama A&M Bulldogs, so he needs to be on that list. But yeah, it's fascinating. Rod Reed was able to do it at Tennessee State, which is extremely hard. One of the few independent, if you would, programs that was able to sneak in.
Used to be the only one.
Right, during that period of time. And this is from 2002 to 2025, so we're coming out on 20 years. So fascinating when you start looking at some of these individuals of what took place. 80 Drew, kind of hearing that, where is your mindset in terms of what we just dropped here?
I mean, it's phenomenal. Like I say, we're in a unique era. We're in an era where success breeds success, especially with the movement that these players have. It's not like back when Rob Broadway won. You could watch, you could see a program coming. Right now, you don't know from year to year which program that is for. So for these coaches, we need to monitor and see the success in the future in this portal era, in this NIL era, and see if people can build their success when you basically turn it over 30, 40, 50% of your roster on a daily. It's different than a Pete Richardson or a Connell Maynard or a Rob Broadway, where we got a good class in this year. We knew we were going to see that quarterback. Wait for 2 years for him to develop, and by the time he's a junior, and then we bring another running back in behind him. So we're not going to see that. One name pre Dr. Cavil's poll. One name I want to throw out there though, Dr. Cavil. How about Billy Joe coming from the NAIA ranks, winning those national championships on the NAIA ranks, and then going on to Florida A&M and winning national championships at Florida A&M. Last thing, I'm gonna say this. I might be wrong
before I started doing this. First,
that's what I said. It was pre-Cavil poll.
Doug Williams and Melvin Spears. I'm gonna put some names out there, but that's a great point when you start going a little further back.
But I was gonna say this. Nowhere on my bingo card of all the FCS HBCU coaches that we have, would I have had Larry Scott as the one who went from the HBCU ranks straight to the P4 ranks. I would not have had that one on my bingo card. Yeah.
I think you also got to be mindful that he was.
I know he was, but
before that. So oftentimes you do see that mix with them being able to jump back and forth. In a lot of ways, you kind of see that with Willie Simmons. Is another example lately where Larry Scott kind of continues that trend.
Right.
But you have North Carolina Central's coach in terms of what he does.
Yeah. But those coaches had to take a gap before they did it. Larry Scott going directly from HBCU to P4. I would not have called that one without some type of gap.
Well, actually, Willie Simmons took the same thing. He went because Larry Scott is not a head coach. He's going to Auburn as an assistant coach.
Yeah. Let me ask this question, Doc. How important is it to make sure that you separate out the errors? Because especially looking at coaches now, especially within the transfer portal time frame versus just going back maybe 5-6 years ago, how much does that change the framework of looking at the success of the coach?
Exactly.
I think it's going to be huge, specifically those that are looking at opportunities to get in these Hall of Fames, whether it's the Conference Hall of Fames or the Black College Football Hall of Fame. I think that's going to become more important. It kind of goes back to where we did the homework assignment when it came up of the Blue Bloods, to your point, and we broke that down. It would be a nice exercise to cross that Blue Blood era with this in terms of what that looks like. My educated guess is that I think it is going to be tremendously more difficult to get these multiple layers. That's one reason I wanted to kind of shout out Chennis Berry to doing it this early, 3 or 4 years in the environment. Now, some people say it might have helped him that he was able to take that pathway from Benedict Tigers where he had the success, transfer over where a lot more of those players could join him than in the past when you had those mixed, you didn't see that much of a leap. So it'd be interesting to see, for example, Quinn Gray, if all the indications what we're hearing, I know it's not official and I don't like to jump out there, but if he's able to go from Albany State and FAMU, can he do similar to what we see with Chennisberry? That gives us a little more indication. Maybe that what Mike asked for was that question, what are the data points? That would be another indication that the data points that you can take a coach in this era where you can do transfers, where you can do it. I think in a lot of ways you have to look at Coach Jackson, even though it was at what I refer to as historically white college university. He took a similar pathway, right, where he took those players. Some of those players came with him, had transfer portal, kept some players, were able to use his success, his philosophy, and win the conference and make a run in the Celebration Bowl. So I think we're kind of early, but these data points are going to be fascinating. One that it didn't work out for was Coach Wilson, that dominated at that level. He literally had 3 championships in 4 years. And one of the things that got in his way to do something that hadn't been done, which was 4 in a row, was COVID. Remember, D2 HBCU programs did not play a fall, spring, whatever you want to call it, during that COVID. That was the only thing that got in his way of maybe doing 4 in a row. So interesting to see. I think we got to play this out a little more, and then we can start doing that framework that you asked about, Charles and Mike and AD, about mixing these eras and how we define blue bloods, what is taking place. You also have to layer on there the expansion of the SWAC. Just because of the depth, it makes it more difficult in terms of what you're doing in the SWAC when you ultimately look at the challenges of players. And we're seeing a new framework where there is a pathway for HBCU coaches that desire to leave, even though, as AD looked at, there's a stopgap, but there's a way to get to head coaching position if some coaches desire. So that's going to be fascinating to see how that affects this, that you're not just looking at coaches have long runs. When we get to our next slide, in terms of the next segment, we'll get a chance to see that indication of teams that were able to navigate, for the most part, at least winning records of what that looks like. But let's take our last break. We'll come back on the other side, talk about these way too early polls, and then get into some data and some other crunching to get you all going. Great dialogue in terms of your thoughts on ultimate Chennisberry finding a way to get it done. 3 and 4 years. We put a period on that. We'll be right back after this break.
Celebration Bowl is celebrating 10 years of crowning an ESPN Events presents Red Lobster Band of the Year.
For over 30 years, HBCU Image has been more than just an apparel store. We've been a movement, a statement, a legacy. We celebrate the pride, the purpose, and the culture that make historically black colleges and universities legendary. Whether you're a student or a lifelong supporter, our gear lets you wear your HBCU story with confidence and style. Because when you wear HBCU Image, you're not just wearing clothes. You're wearing culture. You're wearing pride. You're wearing purpose. HBCU Image, a Kenny T's company.
This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cavil of Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app. as we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture this.
Compress the analytic data with the hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Great discussion in terms of bringing a little bit of history and start analyzing where coaches sit in the pantheon, particularly when we are talking about these Hall of Fames. When you talk about legacies and what that looks like, it's fascinating. We see that a tad bit when you think about the Champions Dinner that we were able to do a show and show some of the folks. One part of that is not only recognizing the teams, but there's an added caveat that Executive Director John Grant has put on that, where the winner earns the coveted now red jacket.
Yeah.
And it is
I like that.
coveted the fact that all of the coaches came back, except for Fobbs. I think Fobbs wasn't there. He is one in terms of the jackets, but certainly was invited, but for whatever reason couldn't get there. But Willie Simmons was there to put the jacket on last year's winner in terms of T.C. Taylor. T.C. Taylor was very excited and appreciative and found a way to make sure that he could actually say Prairie A&M University's name correctly. So
you had to go there
instead of Village, but that's another thing.
Any
You
reason?
would imagine, AD, that was a little sensitive to some of the
I was at a table when that gaffe happened, passing out something, and I'm passing it out, and she said that, and I say, "Ooh!" Everybody at the table just looked up and looked at the stage like.
But the point, I didn't want to get on that, but the point that I wanted to really was recognize these jackets, and you've seen them throughout the game. They stayed around.
Yes, the red jacket.
I happened to see them walking back to the hotel.
Yes, the red jackets.
Which was
any reason why we got to go with red? I mean,
it's in the color scheme.
It's the part of
it's in the color scheme.
Trying to wear purple, and now you're looking at red jackets too.
Mike, I'm sorry, black and gold are not in the Celebration Bowl color scheme. Okay,
they should be. Why not?
Ask Executive Director.
You know, Mike will ask. But with that being said, and you had the fact that you had a Hall of Fame-esque announcement with former Commissioner Dr. Dennis Thomas getting his jacket as they talk about color schemes. Maybe that's the one that could have been black and gold, but it was. Yeah, I believe it was. So anyway, another discussion another day. But let's get into this from a SWAC perspective. Since SWAC expansion in 2021, small sample size, it is 5 years, as we had the 10th anniversary, halfway through this 10th anniversary of the Cricket Celebration Bowl. You bring up that slide, which should be around the next one. It's going to look at 5 teams in terms of these teams, and I'm going to give you their record. In conference play, Charles. These are the only teams that have been able to have winning records over the 5 years that we've had conference expansion.
This the right one?
Alcorn State Braves. Yeah, this is the right one.
Okay.
Alcorn State Braves, who are 21-19 in their 40 games played over the last 5 years. You have Southern Jaguars that are 24-16 over the last 4 years. Prairie A&M Panthers are 27-13 over the last 5 years, 40 games. Florida A&M 31-9, and Jackson State has dominated with a record of 36-4 over that period of time. The next line is actually conference championships. Jackson State has 3 of them over that 5-year period. FAMU has 1. Prairie View has 1 conference championship. And while Alcorn State and the Southern Jaguars have winning records, with the 0, it's obvious that they haven't had the fortune of championship game. But there's another way to look at this also, which is the next line in terms of Cricket Celebration Bowl.
Yeah.
Right? You have Jackson State with 1, FAMU with 1. You see the other 3 with Prairie View getting there, finalists, if you would, but not being able to get it done. Jackson State obviously got there 2 other times beside the time they were able to get it done. I almost said cut down the nets, but that's the wrong sport, even though we're transferring to it. And then the last line is championship game appearances of finalists, if you would. So Jackson State actually should have 1 there in terms of being a finalist. You have 2 SWAC championship game appearances, finalists, if you would, for Prairie View, and 2 for Southern. So early indications of these data points. I know it's, like I said, anything that surprised you, Mike, or anything that stood out? This breakdown of what we've seen in the SWAC expansion area that brought in FAMU and Bethune-Cookman.
What that far column? What is that far right column? That Southern.
Those are appearances in the championship game. So it should be a 1 by Jackson State at the top, 0.
Yeah, okay, that's what. Okay.
2 for Prairie View and 2 for Southern, and 0 for Alcorn State.
And the SWAC championship. Okay. I guess what stands out to me is that we talked about how dominant the East was. But if you look on it, you could argue that Alcorn State was in the East, but you have 3 teams from the West in this list. But it's really the 2 teams in the East that actually have the Celebration Bowl appearance. So we talked about when we started this, who would be dominant, the East or the West? You have, it's 3-2, 3 teams from the West, 2 teams from the East now. But you look at the data points and who's winning or who's at least appearing in the Celebration Bowl. That's what stands out to me. And then you also look at closer at the numbers, 36-4, 31-9. The percentage of wins is statistically higher for Jackson State and Florida A&M. It just in that 4 or 5 year snapshot, and you got to ask yourself, what's the formula? What's driving that as well? So those just the data points kind of are driving my head in different places here. You got 3. And then you saw this last year. Could there be a potential shift and what's happening in the West and who potentially can not only be in the championship but represent the SWAC in the Celebration Bowl?
Fascinating breakdown there from Mike. A lot of information there to take in. The other thing, AD, is I bring up here that's fascinating me with all these teams having winning records. Jackson State has 2 coaches, has had 2 coaches during this period. FAMU has had 2 coaches during this period.
Prairie View's
had 3 coaches during this period.
Yes.
Southern has had 3 coaches during this period in Alcorn, 2. So all of these records that's getting done. And I'm going to come to you, Charles. I'm going to let AD go and sneak in here with that. What are your thoughts from this data that is provided?
I just go back and think pre-expansion when Alcorn State was the class of the SWAC, when what was it, 3 consecutive, 3 and 4 years, something like that. When Alcorn State, it was basically the back half of the teams was Alcorn and Grambling.
AD, you asked the question, so folks put out there. They went 6 straight years, winning 4 titles in those 6 straight years.
Yeah,
2 straight, and they lost 2 straight, and then they came back and won 2 straight.
Right, because it was during that time it was Alcorn and Grambling seemed like the two most dominant teams. So as we switch over to this decade, and I look at these records, Dr. Cavil, and I think about Florida A&M, 31-9. Most of over half of them occurred this year, Dr. Cavil, which really shows the dominance that Florida A&M had. Jackson State, majority of those 4 losses occurred in TC Taylor's first year. So let's think about the dominance that those teams had in those other 4 years.
Yeah, I think if you're not careful, though, when you think about Prairie and Southern, it's the same thing.
I was getting ready to get.
They have one bad year that has really piled up the losses, but the other 4 years, well, this year for Southern, but last year for Prairie.
Yeah,
both of them. So just putting it in there. So it's interesting. You're right that you look at it.
One bad year.
Yep.
And the other 4. And here's the other thing. As I get ready to close out and pass this to Charles, we're halfway through the decade, Mike. So we actually have enough data to make this stuff statistically significant, because we are at the halfway point of the decade. Right. We have 5 complete seasons of expansion, and I know that's part of the reason Dr. Cavil wanted to present this.
That's 5 years of the 10-year schedule, composite schedule.
Yeah. So looking forward to it. And the only last thing, you're supposed to have 6 and 6, considering that there are 12 teams in the SWAC that we're looking at. So I'm curious about that number 6 team and how far they are below that Mendoza line, that 500 line.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, it's Alabama State and A&M right in that mix, and they're like essentially they're like 19 and 21, 17 and what is that, 23? When you talk about where they are. So they're below the Mendoza line. Good question when you talk about who are those other programs. And Grambling is right in that mix in the same framework. Those are the 3. Everything else kind of drops out, bottoms out. But those 3 are the ones that are in the mix around that number.
Yeah. I thought about Grambling as well, because they actually have a win in the championship, but they're not in the top 5.
Well, they actually, during this era, they have not been.
You're right. In this era, they have not. You're right.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to make it specific, because you go back, it changes the formula because you have the less teams. So I wanted to really do it since expansion. And we'll kind of keep a gaze of what this looks like. As Charles really pointed out, what does it look like in this specific era? And how do you judge this era against other coaches and what they did in their era? Charles, final thoughts here.
Yeah, I'm really looking at, and this is really fascinating to me, because
that's what the doctor and the professor does. Then you know, when you get ready to get your class, and I go in the lab. Sometimes I get lucky.
You can make a hard argument.
Yeah,
that this is as dominant a time as any in Jackson State football.
Oh yeah, for sure.
We go back to 1985 to 1989. There's a 28-game SWAC win streak, but I'm curious, over 40 games, whether we've seen whether Jackson State fans have seen anything like this. So I'm literally, I've got my computer pulled up over here, and I'm trying to go through it real fast. But I'm fascinated because I did not realize that it was as dominant over 40 games as it has been. That is,
in this, as one part that you can add on to this, Charles, that simplifies any of your work. The conference is literally as large, which means as deep in terms of teams, and certainly could argue in terms of the depth of the teams and coaches and players as ever for sure. There's no doubt about that.
This is wow. It's startling to take a look at. I knew it was a hell of a run, but I did not recognize over 40 games. This is where it is. This is really fascinating to look at, and I'm literally going back through the 70s and 80s as quickly as I can, to try to see where they are over 40 games here.
You're welcome. Which to me also points out what's interesting, what Ashley Robinson has been able to do, which is, besides Southern, one of the few programs here that can talk about the consistency on the AD side. Particularly for him, all of these schools and even his school have done it with multiple presidents.
Yeah.
That's
Can I add?
a great point. That's
Can
an excellent point.
Go ahead.
Can I add to your point, Charles?
Mm.
I think that statement that you said, looking at the dominance of a Jackson State or any of these programs, I think each one of these programs can go back and take a real hard look and see if there's another era in their program history that they had this type of run. You know, I think about my alma mater. I think about the Billy Joe era, and I also think about the '70s. You know, did we have this type of run during those eras? Southern, I think about Pete Richardson. Hey, we just saw a dominance with Alcorn with the 6 consecutive championship appearances. Was it that dominant as we see with Jackson State? Prairie View back in the 50s and 60s.
I think the difference I say is
that's a good one.
You look at Pete Richardson, that was one coach. Here you're going back to an era where you had 2 to 3 coaches over
that's
there.
Another good point.
Good point.
As I said, in multiple ADs except for Jackson State.
Yeah, my point of reference was sprinting all the way back to Bob Hill and then working my way up through W.C. Gordon. You know, and it's fascinating. And get this, I think Emmett Jones pointed out too. Let's not forget what John Merritt was doing at Tennessee State as well, because I'm curious where Tennessee State kind of falls into this as well. So I realize it's a swag, but you know, I would just.
Well, I mean, it's fair because we need to look at MEAC too to put them in play in terms of what that looks like.
But would MEAC be skewed in a different sense because as the SWAC got larger, the MEAC got essentially.
I think you have to put that in the factor. Absolutely, you have
contracted.
Yeah, you have to talk about that factor. I want to give a shout out to a real data analysis that does it on a lot of levels, and that is Dr. Kerry Banks of Norfolk State University, and he had the fact that we should look at this in terms of cross comparison of department budgets. What are the budgets of these programs compared to each other, and maybe even to the programs that are not winning at this level? What does that look like? So shout out to Dr. Kerry Banks that found a way as a professor to get some analysis in here too. Good job and making sure that he gets some points in here for the MEAC as well, always representing appropriately as he does. With that being said, we'll talk a little about and save some of our way too early analysis of mid-major and major for next week. But wanted to give you some things to think about in terms of the era that we're in. And I'll add this final point. I think this season for the MEAC and SWAC could go down as arguably the best, most competitive season we've seen in a long time when you start to really look at matchups and how close games were from top to bottom. One of the things AD added at the end of the season when we had that upset weekend, if you would, which made sure every team in the conference in the SWAC had a win. You've seen that also in terms of the MEAC, but they had a de facto championship literally being played on the field. You had some magical games there that went down. And throughout the SWAC, when you talk about opening things up with the Labor Day Classic, coming down to the last play and ended the season in terms of the regular season with Jackson State in terms of conference play, coming down to the last play. In all these games in between, and even the SWAC championship game being decided by 2 points and coming down to some last play or a last play in terms of being able to get a first down. So hopefully folks recognize what they're in the midst of in terms of celebrating HBCU football. And that doesn't even include what took place at the mid-major level with the SIAC getting 3 teams in the playoffs. Obviously, it was expansion playoffs, but still in 5 total HBCU programs when you combine the 2 that came out of the CIAA. What a magical season. And hope people will, as they kind of have their football withdrawals or hangovers, if you would, understand to really celebrate the season that just took place. And something tells me, Charles, Mike, and AD Drew. We'll see a little bit more magic next year.
Yeah.
With that,
Yep.
let's call it a close. This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. I want to thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. That's what we do right here. We give you the HBCU sports business in different ways. Look forward as we start to get the viewership numbers in terms of what that looks like. That should be fascinating. Look for that to be significant. We'll see exactly what that is in the near future. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop every Tuesday and Thursday. As we move out of football, you know we drop the Sunday edition unless we have some really things that we need to get to you. We look forward to next Thursday as we discuss the latest news in the lab. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, on Threads, Facebook, and Instagram, Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, Facebook and YouTube in terms of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Let's turn to the hardwood, support these teams. We look forward to some good basketball. We've seen it sneaking, and it starts off in a lot of ways this weekend with some great matchups with the Chris Paul HBCU Classic.
ESPN Plus.
EC.
The Chris Paul Classic is on ESPN Plus this weekend. So, this Thursday and Friday. So we want to make sure that the day games are on ESPN Plus. The evening session is on the U.
Okay, good caveat. Way to catch it. Get the people out to the information they need to know to catch these games. Dream big. Continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Charles.
Of course.
Keep working at your project, Charles. We got you. Mike.
Lecture.
AD.
Chris Paul Classic.
Y'all say some prayers for Charles. He working. I got
dismissed.
Taking a break.
Yeah, dismissed. Hey, Charles.